Music. Recently, there has been a doubt or lack of knowledge about the resources that I believe is worth showing here. The application of the two resources that were commented on, and also the algorithm that overcomes the limitations of the traditional critical path method, the CPM. Here we have a simple example of two branches of production where it defines the longest path and the other, by its production limit, defines the shortest path. The traditional red of the critical path method shows zero slack due to the given conditions of the project's calendar. And the second one in blue shows that it has full float, as predicted in the 1950s methodology applied in project management at the time. In this case here, we have 6 activities and they have resources. I will show the features here. Those are the resources. And the resource can be understood as a very rare resource. It is not a resource that is found anywhere with the use of money. It's a very rare resource. Therefore, the amount of rare resources may be small enough not to meet the simultaneity given by the applied methodology. The CPM then needs to be able to understand the lack of these resources. Understanding, then, that we have these limited resources, understanding that we have the need to do the activities, and understanding that we are here to discuss the two tool resources that help modeling. Let's start recording the baseline for comparative purposes. With that, we can see the shadow, and I'm going to remove the connecting elements so that we can see the shadows. I'll record again and make sure the baseline is in sync. The baseline is gray and the work bars are colored. Understanding now the limited resources, we will no longer calculate through sample shadowing options, simple scheduling options. We are now having resource issues. Let's abandon it and we'll ask him to schedule in a way that takes into account the restriction of rare resources. I'm going to show you that the rare resources are these over here. And it goes within a sequence, within an algorithm that I'm going to use the advanced one here. It searches for the solution. And the solution is this. Disregarding the conceptual baseline of 1950, we are now with a new baseline, the executable, not illusory project baseline. And here we find new execution dates and new completion deadline. Let's admit that the project has 63 days of expectation. Let's completely forget that earlier deadline. Well, here we have to discuss the two resources that we mentioned that were raised in our internal debates. The first feature would be the interruptable. Interruptable is when you have an activity that has the attribute, among others, of being interruptible. If you don't have the resource or if you don't have the conditions, the activity can be interrupted, giving way to another activity. So, if I put this interruptible here in activity 1, 2 and ask it to calculate, there is no difference in our planning. But, as an example, I need to demonstrate the results. I will say which activities are interruptible and which are not. I already have support here. I'm going to copy my support. I'm going to say who is interruptible, who can be interrupted and who cannot be interrupted. I will ask to calculate again. We find that activity 6, which uses rare resources, will give way, in turn, to other activities, which also use rare resources, but which cannot be stopped. Or that they can, but the choice of the algorithm led to it. So we have activity 6 that can be interrupted here in this period. Shall we see the features? It gives 6 resources 1 and 2, which are not rare resources. Shall we see all the features? Here we see that resource 1 and 2 were used here in activity 4, which also only gave time to activity 4. Others compete according to their ability. So the interruptible tool feature allows for richer, more realistic modeling of your situation. Just out of curiosity, we are 66 days into the project because I asked for an advanced analysis algorithm. If I ask for more advanced algorithm or tuning, the search time is longer, but the result could be better. Let's check. 66 days with the same activity interrupted. Let's increase the algorithm requirement level. 60 days with activity interrupted in activity 7. There was a gain in days and the interruption change was placed in activity 7, unlike the previous one, which was in activity 6. We will always keep our work with the advanced standard so that the results can be compared. Our subject has two features of the tool. And the first feature is the interruptible property. The second feature, I'm going to delete the elements. I'm going to erase the baseline. No need to keep looking at it. The baseline is also a concept of the 1950 CPM. Let's apply the second feature. The tool's second feature is to transform the activity, not into a single activity, but into an activity that can be done piece by piece, called work interruptions. And I'm going to select the interrupt that I've already prepared, which says 50% after 5 days. This scheduled interruption will be applied to activity number 4. So it's not a question of it being interruptible. I'm already informing you that it will work being stopped when it has 50% of its work completed and it will restart after 5 days. I'm going to do the CPM calculation, a simplistic method, just to show not the interruption of the algorithm, but the programmed interruption that I just did. This is the CPM version increased by 5 days, because I programmed it to interrupt my activity. The strangulation of the colored bar makes this interruption very clear. If I didn't have the interrupt, it would revert back to the previous unrealistic date pattern for 2 reasons. Because I am not including my scheduled interrupt, nor am I considering the rare resources. Now I'm going to make the algorithm, in addition to considering my scheduled stop, consider this condition of rare resources. Interesting that it looks like we're still at 66 days. Even with the scheduled interruption, my activity 6, it readjusted itself to be interrupted twice automatically. Like, when it happens, I happen. Activity 4, no. I will stop when I complete 50% and start again after 5 days. This is planned conscious programming. This is a consequent programming of the algorithm to seek the best solution. If we just try to understand the best option that the algorithm can seek for optimization, from 66 days we go to 63, and before we had 60. This scheduled stop really makes a difference. So, it's demonstrated. I'm going to return to the pattern. It's demonstrated that there are 2 ways to improve our modeling. The first is for reality to be presented in our work. Not because of the CPM methodology, but because of the principle of doing it as quickly and as soon as possible. However, respecting the resources, which are rare, that it is not possible to acquire new ones simply for having financial resources. And the resource of programming my activity with a stop at 50%, and restart in 5 days, or stop at 10%, restart in 5 days, production for another 20, stop for another 5 days, and so I model. These columns that I'm going to show help to understand these resources, not the support column, but the interrupt column, whether or not the activity can be interrupted automatically, to improve search optimization by the algorithm. And the scheduled shutdown, which I illustrated the name of the shutdown with 50% after it continues for 5 days. I believe that this way we can illustrate the 2 resources of the tool, in the same way that it manages to show that the CPM methodology, even with infinite financial resources, would not be able to manage when it comes to rare or unique equipment for use in a project.